Hey, welcome into the Irish NFL show. Delighted to be joined on YouTube, Brian and Mark Cockrell. Apparently, we'll get to this discussion tonight. Warm welcome in if you're watching live. Warm welcome in if you're on the podcast. Colin, how you doing? You good?
Yeah, I thought yesterday was probably the best week of NFL action. I'm sure Mark Hockel will put that down to the Broncos being on a bye. But I thought yesterday was really some fascinating games, some fantastic games, and plenty for us to discuss this evening.
Brian, have
I'd
you
have to,
stopped talking about Dublin GEA during NFL action, or how are you doing tonight?
it's made a fair point, responding to some nonsense on social last night. The Giants are on a bye week. I believe most of the people actually selected the bye week to beat the Giants this week, but nothing surprised me in terms of getting respect in this league. Yeah, very interesting weekend, Michael. I really enjoyed the action last night. Colin's right, so many intriguing games. A lot of games finished 2017 for some reason. Imagine being a bettor or a punter who bet on that. You'd be a very rich person this evening. But yeah, some very interesting games and some interesting stuff to get through this evening.
Mark, did you find the action enjoyable last night? I thought the late slate was probably the worst we've had in 10 years in terms of. I mean, like it's a professional league. Surely they can find a way to flex a few games, make up a rule to flex something.
Yeah. I mean, the late slate when you have the bye weeks and there's only two games on becomes pretty slim pickings. Obviously, isn't the most enjoyable for those wanting to stay up that bit later. But the 6 o'clock games were great. I mean, we're talking about 68 games went down to the fourth quarter. Only the Bengals and some team called the Patriots kind of had their games in hand, but everything else was a one-score game going down to the wire and everything. So. Good. That's a good, enjoyable slate of games, and there was definitely some drama and definitely some upsets, Michael. Obviously, so I'm sure. I mean, do we cover the Jets news now, or do you make an apology to New York Jets generally now? I mean, how do you want to handle this?
I actually, we're like let's start in the Colts, but I'm not making an apology to the Jets. So like every week we keep getting stuff at like 9:05. It's like, I mean, you were going up against Josh Allen and the Bills. There's no apology coming here. Like, I mean, well done to the Jets fans. Colin, let's jump into the news that a man that has the same experience at a high school level and college level as we all have is now the head coach of an NFL team. First off, just to box off the Patriots fans listening to this podcast, and you're all more than welcome. A very good win for the Patriots yesterday over the Colts, but probably one of the worst performances we've seen offensively in league history. And is Jim Irsay just writing off this year to the point where he wants everyone just to cope and get a high draft pick?
Yeah, look, Jim Irsay has ever since what we saw at the end of last season, the video in front of the plane, it felt almost like we were waiting for this. Unless they were miraculous, it was always going to come to that. And I think, in fairness to Frank Reich, I feel a little bit sorry for him. This is a guy who, ended up taking the job because of Josh McDaniels leaving them at the altar. Thought that it would be Andrew Luck, and it was not to be Andrew Luck. It has been a series of quarterbacks ever since then, obviously culminating this year with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan gets pulled, then they fire their offensive coordinator, then that doesn't work. It's I don't know where they go from here, though. Obviously, as you mentioned, Jeff Saturday has come in, and you mentioned the high school experience, Michael. So in his 3 seasons there, he went 6-6, 8-5, and 3-7. The Hebron Christian Academy for a total overall record of 17-18. So that is who will be seeing the Colts out. I see Florio was raising the prospect of the Rooney Rule. I don't know how that would work mid-season, but look, Brian and I had kind of discussed this a few weeks ago. I thought they would let Wright go, but keep Chris Ballard. I think it'll be interesting to see when they get to the offseason now, though, what happens, because when you look at their O-line, the money they're paying their offensive line and the production they're getting for it, I think Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson look good value in comparison to what the Colts are getting from their O-line.
Brian, there's multiple coaches in the franchise in Indianapolis that would probably feel aggrieved this evening to see Jeff Saturday walked in. I have to give it what Colin said there. I read a tweet from Phil Yates, I think it was, who said he had no high school experience. So I take it back, Jeff. You've coached in high school for 3 years. I mean, there's NFL fans in Ireland with Hogan Cup medals or Schools Cup medals. I mean, like, that's great. Do you think there'll be people that feel aggrieved within the organisation tonight, Brian? And how does this work? Even if he has one good game, I mean, look, they're playing the Raiders this weekend. All right, so like, I mean, let's not start a whole conversation around that to next week. But I mean, Josh McDaniels against Jeff Saturday doesn't really want me to sit down and watch it as much as a lot of Americans want to. I frankly am stunned by this news. I cannot believe it.
Well, there is two former head coaches in the organisation at the moment. That's Gus Bradley and John Fox. And I'd imagine he wants to clean house completely at the end of the season, and he doesn't want to put himself in a situation where one of these guys comes in and, not say they run the table, but he get a response from the team and they win 5 or 6 games and he feels he's in a position to take the job. I think he wants to clean house. It doesn't look like Ballard is going to be, right now it doesn't look like Ballard is going to be a part of that cleaning house scenario. It looks like he potentially will stay, which to me is a surprise. I think if you're going to clean house, start everywhere and move everybody along. I saw an interesting one tonight. Ballard will now get the opportunity to select the head coach of his choice because he never got that opportunity because Josh McDaniels walked away from the situation and Frank Reich was forced upon him. But if you recall, after 12 months of Frank Reich being in the position, they did really well and everybody was saying what a great hire, how fortunate he was to get him. It hasn't worked out. They've had 5 quarterbacks in the last 5 seasons. I think they've had 7 over the course of 8 years. Like, from the top down, it hasn't been run properly. Like, if you keep recycling quarterbacks at some stage, it's just not going to work. And maybe they just need to have a rough situation and a rough season to get primed for a quarterback in the draft. And look, they're never going to get an Andrew Luck situation again, but certainly someone that can come in and maybe they just have to reevaluate for a couple of years and look at what other teams are doing because swapping quarterbacks every year, it's not sustainable. And ultimately, Frank Reich has lost the job because of that.
Mark, do you want to touch on the Patriots as well before we move on? Because I'm conscious that we were going to discuss this game quickly, but if you want to even react.
No. I mean, like, good for the Patriots to go 5-4. It's annoying that they're 5-4 in the bottom of their division, to say the least. So there's a bit of competition there. But no, it's all about the Colts. And I mean, like, I'm not saying it's unprecedented, Jeff Saturday being picked, but you almost have to go back to Tom Landry. He was a defensive coordinator with the Giants. At the same time, he was still playing D-back. He then gave Dan Reeves a shot, actually, when he was playing still at running back to be a coach when Landry was coaching the Dallas Cowboys. But the idea of handing a head coaching job to someone who is just only recently retired, yes, he's long-standing connections, obviously, with the Colts organization, but there's no head coaching experience. That is bizarre, and as Colin rightly calls out and Florio calls out, so well, what is the meaning of the Rooney Rule if you're just going to designate it? We had this angst with John Gruden and others were appointed, and it was very clear they were targeted, and they complied with the Rooney Rule, maybe in the philosophical viewpoint of they interviewed someone, but definitely not with the spirit. Like, even if you call Saturday interim, like, you still need to comply and you still need to be showing a meaningful effort towards minority hiring and consideration of it in a serious fashion. But it's Jim Irsay's world, and look what he's done the last couple of weeks. Benched Matt Ryan. Let's be clear. I mean, that came from ownership. That hasn't worked out. Marcus Brady now looks like one of the most competent coaches in the entire NFL because as soon as he's sacked as offensive coordinator, the Colts' offensive performance dips even further. And look, when it comes to Ballard, I want to be a bit balanced about this. He built from scratch, effectively, a really good defense, drafted exceptionally well. In every other year except for this year, we've generally been praising the Colts' offensive line. But this year, it's off a cliff. It is off a cliff bad. That O-line, their entire offensive game plan. And for that, he, not just Frank Reich, has to bear some responsibility. And it will be fascinating to see how it unfolds. But Irsay's calling all the shots here. So who knows who else is going to go? That's the crazy thing in relation to it. And yes, there's a lot of talk about saying, he's the first coach he fired in 25 years, mid-season, in 25 years of being an owner of the Colts. Yeah, but he's also in the last couple of weeks fired the quarterback, fired the offensive coordinator. So this is not good news and not a good situation for Colts fans.
We'll jump into it maybe a bit. Colin, go ahead.
No, yeah, just to highlight, Michael, you mentioned the upcoming Raiders game next weekend. Looking forward to previewing that, given that Jeff Saturday tweeted just a week ago, quote, "Raiders look horrible." If Josh McDaniels is ever to get the Raiders back on track and they needed some bulletin board material, that tweet is surely it. But I can't imagine Jeff imagined that he would be in the position he now finds himself when he said that.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Mike, one final point on Reich. I feel a lot of his credibility went out the door after the Carson Wentz trade, because he went out for Carson. You know, he had his period in Philadelphia with him. He reached out to the owner and said, I can fix this guy, I can turn him around, and within 12 months they traded him off to Washington, and they lose a lot of the value in which they had in terms of trade value. So I think you'd have to. I say the questions start being raised after that trade, because it didn't work out at all. And anyway, we'll move on.
Let's jump on to that Jets-Bills game. Welcome in everyone watching live on YouTube. Big welcome to everyone watching. Great. You can super chat us if you want me to get a bag of Tito or a pint in Munich this weekend. Much appreciated. I'm joking, but you can. We're live right now, so say hello. Put a comment in as well, and we'll reply to you as well. And obviously a warm welcome to everyone listening into the podcast on this wonderful, wet, drizzy, windy Tuesday morning, north or south of the border. Josh Allen, call him 18 of 34, 205 yards, 2 interceptions. Called it as it was yesterday for him, saying how bad he was. He was the team's leading rusher. Outside of Josh Allen, only 24 yards for Devin Singletary. As good as the Bills are, and they're one of the best teams, if not the most complete team in the NFL, a very, very bad day for them yesterday, and they should have beat this Jets team. But you know, all credit to this Jets team, especially the Jets defense that came up. I'm not sure if you've seen the guy that done a coin flip, the meme. He's got every game right so far. The Jets fan, he is expecting the team to go 11-6 and lose the AFC Championship game. If the Jets get to the AFC Championship game, I might fly out there myself.
Well, right now, Michael, it's early November, and the Jets have a 72% chance of making the playoffs per ESPN analytics. So you might want to start looking at those flights, and it could be squeaky bum time in Denver, because if the Jets were to make the playoffs and the Broncos didn't, Broncos would be in possession of the longest playoff drought in the NFL. Kudos to the Jets yesterday. Talked about on the preview show about the biggest issue with Zach Wilson was holding the ball for far too long. His average time to throw was over 3 seconds. You just cannot get away with that in the NFL. Completely changed that yesterday. Got rid of the ball quickly. The Bills and Von Miller, you know, given the way Von Miller is, they still got to him at times, but he managed the game well, managed third down situations well. The Jets thoroughly deserved their victory. Their defense is for real, and they're handling the injuries really well. For the Bills, the biggest concern, you know, I mean, Josh Allen hasn't been playing well for a couple of weeks now, but literally within the last couple of minutes, Sean McDermott has come out to say they need to do more tests on the elbow. They are not sure just how bad that elbow injury might be, and that is enormously concerning, because obviously Matthew Stafford had the elbow injury that we heard about at the start of the season. Nothing to worry about, absolutely nothing to worry about. It's all fine. This is what teams say all the time. But sometimes that is the case, sometimes it isn't the case. And when you have, you know, you go the bit, like Jerry Jones likes to say, the Cowboys go as Zeke goes, the Bills go as Josh Allen goes, and if he's not 100%, that is enormously worrying.
Brian, do you think yesterday was just an off day for the Bills? I mean, they'll probably put up about 100 next week.
I would put it all down to the Jets defense. I don't think we can underappreciate the performance of that Jets defense yesterday. Josh Allen was sacked 5 times yesterday. He had 16 incomplete passes, and he was intercepted twice. And the Jets defense didn't give up one penalty in the entirety of the game. I mean, you're not far off a perfect performance against arguably the best quarterback in the league right now, or certainly on form one of the best quarterbacks. But he has been off. I mean, the 2 interceptions yesterday were, I mean, they were just very poor. Like, it was the kind of stuff we saw from Josh Allen the first year has happened. You know, no one threatened him interceptions, and he had 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter against Green Bay last week they were poor as well. And like Colin says, he's off. He's slightly off, but the problem is, for most teams, him being off is still at a level like this. He still ran for 2 touchdowns yesterday, but overall, he wasn't at the level we were yesterday. But I would put that largely down to how good that Jets defense was, and just on the Jets offense. I know Colin was going to touch on it more so than the defense, but like Zach Wilson only threw the ball 25 times yesterday. Essentially, it was back to let's not do anything stupid in this game, Zach, like we did last week with the 3 interceptions against New England. They ran for 174 yards. That was the game plan. Try to get the run game going. Let's make sure our quarterback doesn't do anything foolish like he did last week, and let's rely on our defense, and it worked out perfectly for him. It's a great win, and you're right, like you look at what they've got left in terms of games, there's no reason why this Jets team won't be a wild card. And as a fan of another New York team, it's great to see New York teams having a great season.
Yeah, New Jersey teams, Brian. But yeah, New Jersey teams doing great.
Whatever way you want them.
But they both
Buffalo
doing...
the New York team, Mark. Yeah, Buffalo's
well,
New York.
Buffalo are exactly.
Mark, did you see the Buffalo Stadium render, and the Jets took the piss out of it by changing the score to yesterday's scoreline? Like what Robert Saleh's done, Mark, is incredible. I'm not sure if you've been on whenever I've been on to talk about the kid about the ice cream, Joey. He was there yesterday, and the team. Mark, you need to get TikTok, mate. Basically, this kid keeps eating ice cream every week. He's a big Jets fan. He's got like a New Jersey. He's from New Jersey. He's got a New Jersey accent, and he's very cute. I'll send you it after this broadcast. But Joey's eating a lot of ice cream this week.
Well, no, but you call out the right person. I mean, Robert Saleh. I mean, they have talent on that defense. That's undeniable. I remember we were talking about it in the preseason. We were kind of going, this defense is going to be good. They're going to upgrade magnificently. Robert Saleh's still one of the best coaches, but it's probably not going to be enough to make up for everything. They've actually fixed so many flaws on the offense as well. The offensive line is busting holes in the running game, even if it's not Breece Hall there. They actually have some people down the field to throw the ball to. Is Zach Wilson the answer? Yeah, I mean, I think there's still a lot of question marks over that. But in fairness, if there was ever a game where he could have regressed and they could have made silly mistakes, going down 11 points early to the Bills could have easily been a scenario where they deviated from their game plan, that they started to throw it around more. They didn't. They trusted the process. They trusted their game plan. To hold the Bills and their offense to 3 points over the last 36 minutes of the game is just an impressive achievement in itself. And yes, I would say 80% of the compliments have to go to the defense, a good 19% to Robert Saleh, and maybe 1% to the rest of the organization and team. But let's be fair, the defense were immaculate. It was a fantastic performance, very well deserved. And yeah, I mean, they're for real. I mean, I said to someone earlier today, a number of friends of mine are Jets fans, they're taking quite a degree of pleasure, as you might imagine, in reliving their success at the moment. And I said, the thing is, this isn't your daddy's Jets. This isn't even our generation's Jets. We haven't seen this Jets before. This is brand new information. So maybe Willie Joe is going to have some company, and maybe the guarantee comes back around. That's certainly how Jets fans are dreaming at the moment.
It's just a pity that this is the end of the podcast segment. So thanks very much for listening. If you have listened, please like, share, subscribe. Tell your ma, tell your dad, tell your granny, tell the local butcher. I don't care. Please listen. Really appreciate it. Like on Spotify. Okay. Mark was talking about in the previous segment, welcome in everyone if you're watching on YouTube or listening on podcast, about the AFC East. It's just a pity, Colin, that the Dolphins are too good. And that, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm going to get done for saying this, it doesn't really matter how the Jets play because the Dolphins' offense is too good. Yeah? And you got the combination of the Dolphins, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Chargers when they're at full strength, and we'll talk about that game next. I mean, the Dolphins just looked unreal yesterday, didn't they? I mean, that game was so fun to watch. 35-32. And I have to give it, we've gave Justin Fields and the Bears enough crap on this broadcast, and we can probably talk a little bit about the defense in Miami yesterday. But Fields, it's amazing what happens when you put people around him. And he set for, hopefully, a progressive and interesting end to this season, and it gives Bears fans Another 7 or 8 months of hope for about the 50th year in a row.
Well, I think deserved hope. Justin Fields
absolutely
has copped a lot of flack on this show, and it's not, they haven't even put that many people around him. They finally leaned into what he can do. I mean, yesterday he ran 178 yards. It's a regular season record, and he has. When they finally leaned into it after their mini bye, he's been really, really impressive. His athleticism is phenomenal. If they actually do begin to put players around him, maybe he can really go on to develop. We have seen it plenty, and we discussed it on the show in the preview show last week about how the Bills did that with Diggs, the Eagles did it with AJ Brown. And the Raiders tried to do it with Devonta Adams. But look, I said on Thursday's preview show, the best case scenario for the Bears was score more than 25 points and lose the game. Because realistically, they traded away the pieces. This is about finding out if Justin Fields is the guy. If he continues to perform like this, he absolutely is the guy. You then have a whole load of money and a whole load of draft capital to go and put the pieces around him. Miami, they're scary good, and their ability to get wide open because the speed is just something else. Obviously, Tyreek getting to 1,000 yards yesterday, and Tua is 6-0 when he starts and finishes a game this season. It will be obviously their defense is the piece that they need to work on. But offensively, the Dolphins are majestic to watch.
Brian, just a quick reminder for everyone watching this on YouTube. Kajay, please like this video. It'll give Brian a big smile. Talking big smiles, Colin mentioned there, Brian, about Justin Fields and they're giving him a chance. He looked more confident, more comfortable in the ball yesterday, and also bringing in Chase Claypool is one element for him. But even the fact that did he break the record for rushing yesterday? That's for a quarterback, that's incredible. It was 180 yards,
178 yards, just as well he did, because he only threw for 123 yards on 28 throws, and he didn't get one first down from 7 minutes and 50 left in the fourth quarter when he was put in a position where he had to start throwing the ball because they were playing catch up. Look, the Bears have adjusted their offense to suit his skill set. We spoke about it a few weeks ago. I think when we were previewing the show, like Colin said, we knew they'd put up points, but ultimately their defense is gone for the season because of the trades in which they've done. Just to piggyback on what you said there about the Jets, and unfortunately for the Jets, they're in a division with the Dolphins. The Jets have beaten the Dolphins so far, and as good as the Dolphins are, I think the Jets, if anybody winning the division, can.
But that Jets Dolphins game has got many different elements to it.
I know it has. Yeah, I know. Yeah, there was two quarterbacks in that game. No, but I'm just saying right now the
Broncos beat the Niners. If we're going to go into that, the Broncos beat the Niners, the Colts beat the Broncos. I mean, I don't want to start going to that situation.
No, I understand. No, fair. That's a fair point. No, I suppose the point you're going to make is right now they have the tiebreak over them. So they've got a tiebreak over them. If they were to finish level, they still have to go into Miami. That'll be a very difficult game whenever it comes around. But look, the Dolphins the Dolphins defense. This is not sustainable. Last week against the Lions, they were 14-0 down. They came back and won. They're playing against the Browns defense this weekend, and the Browns have had their problems, but they shut down Joe Burrow last week, and Browns defense on their day could do a job on anyone. So I think this weekend is a real marker for them, because let's see how they do against a real strong defense. The last 2 weeks, they played really well against poor defenses, but prior to that, they only went over 20 points in one game this season offensively, and that was against the Patriots in week 1. Tua was 19 points, and then obviously Tua went down. So they have had their struggles. When Tua's playing, they're great, but this weekend for me is a big one. They're playing the Browns. Defense will look to shut Tua down, and obviously they've got players in the secondary that could potentially do a number on Tyreek Hill if you can do a number on him on his day. But look, it's a good win for the Bears. It is what it is. They're going to play really well in games this season offensively, but they're going to struggle defensively. They're entertaining to watch.
Mark, Brian mentioned there about doing a number on Tyreek Hill. For you and for a general NFL fan, is this scary point there going, okay, we'll do a number on Tyreek. You got Jalen Waddle, Trent Sherfield, Cedric Wilson, Jeffrey Wilson, Mike Gesicki, Raheem Mostert, and Smythe as well. They get to January, and I've said this a few times to other lads in this broadcast, they get to January about 85-90% healthy. They're going to be in Arizona. Yeah?
No. No, because their defense
They're going to be in
isn't
the
good enough.
AFC Championship game. Yeah?
No, their defense isn't good enough at this moment in time. They're not performing
Yeah,
well
but they can
enough
put up
on
50
defense
if need
to
to.
justify
So it's
that.
fine.
Justin Fields had an amazing game yesterday. I mean, like, you want a YouTube clip, Michael? Mike McDaniel telling Justin Fields leaving the sideline, just stop it, in a very joking fashion. And Fields, that's just good, heart-natured fun. I mean, that's actually lovely to see from McDaniel and from Fields and that type of interaction. But Chicago should have won this game. They had the ball twice, and all they needed was, they needed a field goal to bring it to overtime or one more sustained drive. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was entertaining as hell. Best game of the weekend. Great to see the to and fro-in. Didn't necessarily think the Bears had it in them. I thought they could only obliterate a defense like the Patriots defense, but they certainly obliterated the Dolphins defense as well. And I think realistically, the Dolphins are still probably one of the most exciting offenses, but on paper, like, they haven't actually clicked yet fully. Now, maybe, Michael, your point is that given another half a season and those syncs will connect. And yes, the excitement isn't necessarily you shut down Hill, but then Waddle's there. You shut down Waddle and Hill's there. They're the twin terrors. We had the twin towers. They're the twin terrors for me.
Well, it's all about the separation mark for me. All these guys, when two is on it, are just so much better in terms of the rest of the teams in that conference. I just don't see how anyone's making the ball.
So Tua is still a threat to run the ball. The running quarterback threat is still so important. He throws the ball pretty accurately on the move. And if they're getting separation, like the fact that Tua's accuracy potentially downfield isn't always the most accurate, becomes less relevant because they've got so much separation they can make up for it. But they need to put more of a run together and be more consistent. They're not, I wouldn't put them in the Bills or the Chiefs category in any shape or means. Are they in that next echelon along with the Ravens, we have to say, with the Jets and things like that? Absolutely. And the next half of the season is going to be interesting. I will give one other stat. You mentioned about Fields' record day. The only other quarterback I think that has run for more was actually in the postseason, Colin Kaepernick for the 49ers, 181 yards against Green Bay. I only bring that up because I'm sure a lot of Packers fans after the weekend just need that one little bit more pain just to think of in relation to it. And I want to share this with you, gents. This is the best. This was Mike Reese on ESPN, but this is a great stat because we're talking about the Dolphins. And I know they played Thursday, but we should always mention the Eagles as they do have an unbeaten record. There are only 3 teams in the history of the NFL who have gone 8-0 without ever being behind in the second half of the games. There's the 84 Dolphins, Dan Marino, fantastic year, obviously fell short. The 2019 Patriots, and now the 2022 Eagles. And the one thing the Eagles fans don't want to hear is those other 2 teams didn't win the Super Bowl. So, we'll see if the Eagles can finish the job this year.
Colin, big shout out to Mark. This just gave me the YouTube title for tonight, saying, "Here is why the Miami Dolphins will not, in capital letters, win the Super Bowl." So that's on Mark. And if that doesn't work for clickbait, I don't know. Please like the video, folks. You have something to say, Colin?
A couple of things said, just from what Mark is saying. The teams he mentioned, though, it's a bit like the Dutch teams that failed to win the World Cup. You're almost immortalized more by not winning it, sometimes by going on to win it. And also, Mr. O'Leary highlighted that Justin Fields, I think it was 123 yards he only threw for yesterday. And look, Justin Fields' struggles this year, well documented earlier in the year. Nobody to throw to, people questioning him. And yet, Justin Fields is a mere 77 passing yards behind one Daniel Jones. And what a season Daniel Jones and the Giants are having. Absolutely fantastic. Everybody agrees the Giants and Daniel Jones taking a great step forward. And there is Justin Fields, the man who only threw for 123 yards yesterday, but he's a mere 77 yards behind. Wow, what a testament to Justin Fields.
He just has to have 5 game-winning drives to get on the old Daniel Jones train.
Jesus Christ. Mark, come on.
I was just going to say, Michael, it was a good weekend as well for mid-season trades. There was a lot of questions. Why did the Bears spend the second-round pick on Chase Claypool? Well, gives Justin Fields another downfield threat, and I know we'll come to it, but the Vikings trade for Hockenson When he takes 9 catches for 70-odd yards from the tight end position, you kind of go, oh, that wasn't a bad idea in relation to it. So we don't often say that about those mid-season trades. Von Miller last year to the Rams being a notable exception. But early returns positive already.
Let's move on. Really excited to talk about this game, because if everyone just goes back to Thursday night and hears the absolute crap that people were saying about Justin Herbert, just go watch it. Colin, he done really well last night in terms of what he had to play with, and I think people will be very happy. Well, all 7 Chargers fans in LA. There's more Chargers fans in Ireland than there is in LA, but there's great Chargers fans listening to this or watching this podcast right now. Hope you're all doing well, lads and ladies. Colin, Chargers get it done against the Falcons. Mariota couldn't really get it going, but they win 20-17, and Falcons should have won it at the end.
Yeah, you've just said it. The Falcons should have won it. That's the issue for the Chargers. The Falcons with the most, like, I thought, I was just surprised he wasn't wearing a Browns uniform. He picks it up and he runs and inexplicably, more inexplicably than even Kyler Murray's fumble, because at least the defender was coming across. He just drops the ball, just drops it. And then when he doesn't get on top of it, he just gently taps the ground. Not even a Sami Kaffour type after United got the winner in Barcelona. He just is like, that's a pity. You've just given the game away. You have just literally let it drop through your butterfingers. Yeah, the Chargers got it done, and any win in the NFL is hard fought.
But Herbert didn't have a bad game in terms of what he had around him.
But this is the problem. Like, when is Mike Williams coming back? When is Keenan Allen's hamstring going to be okay for him to play? And do you trust that to hold up through the rest of the season / the postseason? I mean, I'm a massive Justin Herbert fan. I think Justin Herbert is fantastic. I just don't think that the Chargers have the receiving talent to really threaten. I mean, we saw it again with Everett yesterday. Another butterfingers. That is the issue. The issue is not Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is a fantastic player playing through the pain. The issue is what surrounds and even more so than that, their OC, who I saw a tweet yesterday saying he should be up in The Hague for crimes against offensive football. And we could probably put him in there with Pat Shurmur.
Brian, there's a comment here saying the Dublin Chargers has a ring to it. All this talk about giving London 2 teams, and there's no love for the Emerald Isle. Whether you're in Ballymena or Ballybrack, there's no love for this wee island. It's not good enough, is it, Brian?
I'm sure the NFL have some long-term plan in place.
I'm joking. Of course they do. Of course they do.
Reward us.
But the Dublin Chargers would probably... I mean, there's more people at a National League game in Offaly than there is at a Chargers game. So let's put it out there and just say it.
Well, no, Michael, because there's a lot of
traveling. You fill Healy Park, Brian.
There's a lot of travelling fans that go in and watch the Chargers, whoever they're
not counting that. I'm counting the home fans.
It's always been that case ever since they left San Diego. Unfortunately, they couldn't come to a compromise and build a new stadium for them, and the owner took his team and said, right, we're out of here. This game, look, yeah, I know where you're coming from, Michael, but like I'm with Conor. Like, we felt we weren't having a pop at Herbert. We were saying about the frailties offensively, and I did say that run game is a disaster defensively.
Did you not call him a spoofer the other night? Somebody called him a spoofer.
No, I called their head coach a spoofer, and he is a spoofer.
Okay.
Because they nearly threw the game. They lost the game.
Cousin.
They should have lost that game. They should have lost that game. I said their run defense was terrible. Cordell Patterson scores 2 touchdowns and also goes for another 40-yard touchdown, which was pulled back for a very dubious flag as well. I haven't looked at it a couple of times, and even was commented on during the commentary that it was a soft penalty. But the Falcons what we saw. The Falcons yesterday were what we saw over the past years. They find ways to lose games, and they should be 5-4. Last week they went up by 6 points with 20 seconds to go, and they somehow won, but they should have lost because they threw that game away essentially. But the Chargers got over the line. You're saying about whether this is sustainable with no wide receivers there. They're playing away to the 49ers next week on Sunday Night Football. That's a very difficult one. And the following week,
everyone's down on Jimmy Garoppolo in this podcast. So, I mean, that's fine.
Not down on the 49ers. We're not down on the Chiefs.
Chiefs are now. Mark, I know you're next. I know you're bringing us up in 2 seconds after Brian finishes. The Chargers are 1 game off the Chiefs.
I understand.
They're 1 game off.
I'm just saying, with the wide receivers out, we've seen the struggles offensively in a lot of games this season when they start playing against much better opposition. And in fairness to the 49ers, they had a great win last week against the Rams, and McCaffrey looks like he's hit the ground running. You see the line for that game. The 49ers are 7-point favourites for that game. So nobody has any faith in that Chargers offence right now. Anyway, sorry, I'm taking too much time.
No, you're fine. I mean, I said it the other day, like in terms of lines and spreads, like the Titans were good value last night.
They were.
Minus 13.5. Very good value. And we'll talk about that in the betting podcast this week. Mark, I'm going to call it now. It's 9:40 p.m. on Monday, the 7th of November. The love on with Odell will end this week because I just don't get it. And I actually think it's getting a wee bit embarrassing at this stage. It's really annoying, to be honest with you. He's going to go to the Chargers. Do you like it? Do you like the move? Chargers, Odell? Herbert's got a wee weapon. They're 1 game off in the West.
No. I think if I'm the Chargers, I'd rather have the draft capital and I'd rather have Williams and Allen back. Look, it depends on injuries. The Rams wouldn't have traded for Beckham if they... Well, sorry, they did actually trade for Beckham and it proved prescient because then Woods went down with his ACL, wasn't it? Almost the week after.
Well, they were in all-win mode, weren't they? I mean,
absolutely. I don't think the Chargers are in that mode and I don't think they've got as clear a path, maybe, as the Rams arguably had last year. I also still question, what does Odell still have to offer? I mean, maybe that's his mantra, though. So, like, let's do the half season. But you don't know how he's responded to an injury. He has miles on the clock, and I'm not sure it's the right move at the right time for the Chargers. If I'm being brutally honest in relation to it. But don't get me wrong, the Chargers need a lot more than luck they got yesterday. I mean, yesterday was like they rubbed the rabbit's foot with a few shamrocks. To be honest with you, that was super lucky. But what goes around comes around. How many times have they thrown it away? Like a Chargers scoring a game-winning field goal to win a game is almost like a headline. It belongs in the Onion, for Christ's sake. It was almost like, no. That's never the way this story is written. They've experienced double fumbles like that before. Actually, they lost effectively a playoff game to the Patriots back in 2006 with exactly the same type of thing. Interception. It wasn't a strip. It was an interception, then fumbled back to the Patriots, and that lives on in infamy there. So maybe they deserved a little bit of luck at this stage. God knows in most seasons the Chargers don't have it. But was it lucky? Yeah, it was lucky as hell. The Falcons, interestingly, look, they're still around there. Like the NFC South, we thought they were going to be an absolute dumpster fire. They're okay. The Bucs have the tiebreaker, but they're both on 4 and 5. Like the NFC South is, it's open. That's what I'll say. It's open, and I think a huge amount of credit to the job that's been done there with serious gaps on the roster has to be given. Cordero Patterson coming back from IR is useful, and we'll see how it goes. So, fair play, good win, lucky win, but they all count.
They all count. We're going to talk about the Bengals game now in just a wee second. Just a big thanks to everyone watching this live. Please comment, please like, please share, whatever you need to do, folks. Really, really appreciate it. Massively appreciate it. Really appreciate the support. Also want to give a shout out to Bengals or Who Day UK for helping me out yesterday. They had a great day yesterday, Colin. Joe Burrow had less passing yards than Justin Herbert yesterday. But the real and many other quarterbacks. But the real story about yesterday was Joe Mixon. I logged into my fantasy team for the first time since week 1 and seen I was 1-7 because I don't have a life anymore. And anybody that thinks I'm lying, feel free to go up to Dungan and I'll show you. But went in, fired Mixon on 60 points, easy as. I literally could have dropped the quarterback, and whoever I don't even know who was playing. I mean, does it really matter? Let's not waste time in the Panthers. Yeah? I mean,
well, I was high on the Panthers because they had a top 10 run defense, and the Bengals had been struggling. Fortunately, I had Mixon as well, so that eased the pain. But for the Panthers, what a nightmare! Just absolutely annihilated, and then they started their undrafted quarterback who had an amazing pass last week, obviously, and we discussed that on the podcast, and we brought on his former coach, but he was in ahead of the former number 1 overall pick. because the former number 1 overall pick played terribly, and then they end up having to pull him and put the former number 1 overall pick back in. But now they've activated Sam Darnold. There had been some even discussion last week that they could have potentially cut Mayfield. Well, that won't be happening now. Who did the Panthers play at quarterback next week? All to be revealed.
Baker Mayfield.
No, well, it's been confirmed. It has been confirmed, Stephen, that PJ Walker will start on Thursday night against the Falcons. Confirmed. First thing confirmed this afternoon.
Oh, Jesus. I mean, like, I'm not watching that game. I'm just going to put it out here now. I am fortunate enough to work on this league full time. Brian, I'm not watching this game. You'd have to put me in front of the TV and sellotape my eyes open. I'm not.
It was an exciting game last week when they played in Atlanta. In fairness, it came down right to the end. There was a DJ Moore touchdown and went. They missed field goal, missed extra point, went into overtime, missed field goal, a winning field goal. So we probably won't see any of that on Thursday night. However, as Mark said, the division is open, and if the Panthers were to win on Thursday, and results went their way in Munich on Sunday, they potentially could be joint top of the division on Sunday night. So a lot of permutations. Not that much is needed either. So
yeah. And Brian, let's Panthers fans can remember the year with Cam Newton as quarterback. They were 3-8-1, won their last 4 games,
True.
and then they made the playoffs. And not only that, had a home playoff tie because they'd won their division at 7-8-1. So it's the NFC South has form in this regard. I must admit, look, due to family commitments, I obviously couldn't make the shows last week, but I was devastated because that DJ Moore touchdown with the missed extra point reminded me actually of the Saints scoring on a kind of the Hail Mary type of flipping around the plays with multiple laterals. And then promptly, Joe Horn, I think, scored the touchdown against the Panthers. And then they promptly missed the extra point, so the game didn't go to overtime. So it was like, and that's when extra points used to be like gimme plays type of thing. So the parallels were remarkable there. I think maybe it wasn't the Panthers, maybe it was the Bucks, but it was definitely the Saints getting that in the last second and missing the extra point, and it was almost inevitable once that happened. To me, like the Panthers, in fairness, Michael, it's almost like nobody believes in us. They have this amazing surge of performance. They won a game, then they came so close, should have beaten the Falcons as well. With the trade of Christian McCaffrey kind of being like, oh, nobody believes in us. And it's like, yeah, the Bengals game is why we don't believe in you. The Bengals game is like, you don't have enough talent there. Yes, a lot of the problem was Matt Rule. That problem has left the building, but you don't have the talent at the skill positions. You've got a great defense. They didn't stand up to the Bengals, who are starting to click, are starting to get it back together, maybe in position now to make a good run for the second half of the season, and an amazing performance by Mixon. Anytime you get 5 touchdowns, doesn't matter how they come, like that's just unbelievable. So congratulations to you both and all the fantasy football owners out there that can enjoy it. The other thing I was gutted about missing last week was C-Mac doing the trifecta. Lanian Tomlinson, I think, who did it for the Pats? David Patton. And I think that's about the only people who've ever done it before, the trifecta of throwing, catching, and passing in the same game.
Pre or post-merger? I mean, as bored.
Yeah, no. David Patton did it. Actually, Tom Brady's first ever start against the Indianapolis Colts in 2002. But the
Baltimore Colts, yeah, or
no, they were still Indy at that stage. I think it was 02. Maybe it was. Yeah, it was. But I had the whole rap for It's Tricky because he was run CMC. Now he's every version of CMC. Like he was throw CMC, catch CMC. I had a whole thing, Michael. You would have loved it. There was dancing, vibes. It's great.
I call him Ron CMC. Like Ron Seal just covers over the.
Because he does exactly what he says on the tin.
That, and he also covers over many things. Can we just jump onto the Packers now? Because I woke up this morning feeling fine. Didn't watch Sunday Night Football at all. Still haven't even watched the highlights, so I'm not talking about Sunday Night Football. I haven't watched it. Haven't watched Sunday Night Football. Woke up and got Game Pass on. Got a wee bagel, cup and tea column, and watched Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. And sweet baby Jesus, either the OC needs to go before the end of next week, or Rodgers needs to go at the end of the year. He's done. Some of the passes he missed, and more importantly, some of the players that were open, and he could see the players that were open. It's actually quite sad to see. And you can just see a huge decline. I'm not sure if it's ivermectin or oils or whatever was going on. Side note in the Rodgers situation, Colin, do you know the doppelganger in Germany looks like Aaron Rodgers? That
Yes.
guy. He hasn't got a ticket for Sunday. And he was out last night with Rachel Bonnetta and Colleen Wolfe. And he hasn't got a ticket for the Munich game on Sunday. So if anyone's watching this and has a ticket, feel free to give it to Aaron Rodgers. Maybe he'll do a better job on the field. You all laughed at me the other night whenever I said changes need to be made in Green Bay. I genuinely have never seen a team go as far down as quickly as possible. And I know this is the league where teams can go from last to first. I'm sorry, but you pay Aaron Rodgers a bumper contract. You bring in players that people think suits him. All these rookies. Oh, it's going to be a great season for Rodgers. He's going to click it together. I mean, it's pathetic to watch. Like there's no other way to put it around it. They're not getting the ball down the field, and more so, Rodgers does not look like he's enjoying the game. He doesn't look comfortable. When does it end?
Well, I laughed at the idea of Matt LaFleur going, right, because he's got to get time. But yeah, Rodgers it's been a train wreck. It absolutely has. Little Wayne saying that they should never have re-signed him. Plenty of Packers fans feeling that way as well. We talked about on the previous show, this is what happens when you sign superstar quarterbacks to enormous contracts, that you end up having to make haircuts elsewhere. Obviously, David Bakhtiari's knee injury has been an issue, but nothing is going right for the Packers. I mean, this was... he equaled his worst ever game in terms of interceptions thrown, first time since 2017 that he'd thrown 3. But yeah, he missed plenty of open receivers as well. But then, I mean, this has been the season for those QBs doing it. We've seen Russell Wilson do it. We've seen Tom Brady do it. We've seen Matthew Stafford do it. The league, Vic Fangio has, and perhaps the party has made the league, the way in which teams defend. Offenses are struggling, and offenses that moved on from their superstar wide receivers are struggling for the most part, other than the Chiefs, who have a head coach and QB there who are so in tandem. But there is no easy fix here for the Packers in any way, shape, or form. I am wondering what we will see Mr. Rodgers say when he makes his appearance tomorrow on the Pat McAfee show. He talked about mental errors. He talked about positive mental attitude. He didn't seem to have much of a positive mental attitude when he was screaming at rookie wide receivers yesterday. It's a season of hurt for the Packers, and Romeo Dubes is out. Probably it looks like 4 to 6 weeks. I think that's yet to be confirmed just how long. But he was probably the one rookie who things were looking up for. So yeah, it's a season of hurt. But at the same time, got to give some kudos to the Lions, who were the worst defense in the league. Made some changes, and in fairness, came up trumps yesterday. So kudos to them for holding Aaron Rodgers in the red zone and for getting it done. They needed a response. We talked about how it couldn't just kind of live on hope and prayers for Dan Campbell. It couldn't just be the energy. They had to get the results. And despite the trading away one of their better offensive weapons in Hawkinson, they managed to get the victory.
Brian, I will take what Colin said about the defense for Detroit and agree with what he said. I will say that, you can only beat what you're up against. The Packers didn't really offer much at all yesterday, was it? I mean, like I get the situation with, for example, as Colin mentioned there, like Hutchinson, and
it's
like Alabama could have went in yesterday and probably scored more points than
the Lions are the worst defense in the league.
They're the worst defense in the league.
Yeah,
Rodgers played into that big time. But I will say this. I mean, Brady gets a lot of guff on this broadcast all season about how he's dropped. And there has been a drop-off. He got the job done last night, and he found a way to make it work. Aaron Rodgers last night, like, go and look at the tape. I mean, there was 5 or 6 different times where he had guys open down the field, nobody on them. He's seen them within eyes distance. He was looking his helmet towards them, and then he turned and threw it at somebody else. I genuinely I'm baffled where this team is going, and I take what Colin said about Lafleur. Fine, we'll give it 2 weeks, and then Adam Stanovich needs to go as the OC. There's no excuse for that play.
When someone will lose a job. I don't believe it'll be the head coach, but someone at some stage, because Mark Murphy, we can go on about GM Gutekunst, but ultimately I think Mark Murphy's the one that makes all decisions, and at some stage he's going to draw a line in the sand here and let someone go. Or could have run out of excuses. I don't really know. It sounds terrible. I don't really know what to say anymore, because at the start of the season we said, oh well, it's a new band of wide receivers. They'll get it together at some stage. But there's other teams in the league having good seasons with, let's be fair, inefficient wide receivers and poorer selection of players available to them, but they're still finding ways to win. And yesterday again we saw it's just not working. Defensively this season has been a mess. They gave up. The discipline on the defense is all gone. They gave up 81 yards on eight flags yesterday for 81 yards. They've lost Rashawn Gary for the season now today. He's another major blow for them. Like the defense, and Mark called it out after the Patriots game a couple of weeks ago, that this defense, if this shows up on Sunday in London, the Giants will beat them, and it did, and it hasn't got any better. So what's Rodgers getting all the focus, and rightly so, the defense is not playing well. I know they held the Lions to 16 points yesterday, but it's the manner of the defeat. And we said on the show the other day, they don't win this game. They play the Cowboys on Sunday, coming off a bye week. It's not getting any easier, is it? Packers fans have to be concerned at this stage. I think 1 or 2 more defeats in the season. Like I said on the show the other night, we can talk about them not making the playoffs. Right now, you look at the situation, they're only 2 games out of the wild card, but where's the form? Where's this team going to turn things around? I just can't see it at the moment.
Mark, I think we've touched all bases here. It's pretty concerning to see Aaron Rodgers play like that, isn't it? But more so, it's concerning to see a veteran treat rookies in the way he has.
Oh, yeah. Look, for me, there was a brilliant moment on Red Zone this weekend where great romantic movie for you, Michael, to watch at home with the missus. Sliding Doors, Gwyneth Paltrow, John Hannah, just that momentary thing of something changing. And it was a sliding doors moment.
What year are we talking?
We're talking, that's a good question, 2004?
Pre or post color or HD?
Late 90s. It's wonderful.
Have you got it on VHS or something?
Fever Pitch with is better, but that's another matter. That's because it's got Arsenal in it. Anyway, sliding doors moment. Green Bay Packers on one screen, Minnesota Vikings on the other. And what happens is the exact opposite to what has happened in the NFC North for most of the last decade, 15 years. Minnesota losing by 10 points, throwing a game away, get a touchdown. Green Bay held by the Lions in the red zone, end up having to take a field goal. And you can sense the swing in momentum in the 2 games in that regard. Now, normally, you're watching it and it looks like the Packers are going to throw away a bit of a lead, but they somehow pull it out at the end, and the Vikings lose a game they should have won. This weekend, this season, it's very different. We're talking a lot about the Packers, but the Vikings are walking away with that NFC North, and they don't look particularly great. Jesus, they struggled to beat the Commanders this weekend, and they haven't really beaten anyone of note. Same token, they're 7-1. They did beat the Packers, obviously, in week 1, but that's looking less and less impressive. And look, you guys have heard me rant about it before, and it feels bad to jump on it at this point in time. But I have said it before. Aaron Rodgers is not a leader and does not display leadership qualities. And to me, that is the one issue with him is you can't rank him up in the category of the Mannings and the Bradys and other great quarterbacks. He has all the talent in the world, all the arm strength, but it's always someone else's problem. It's been for every exit in the playoffs, and he makes no bones about throwing people under the bus. And then this year, the attitude, the persona, the way he carries himself, the way he's performing, none of it smacks of leadership, frankly. And look, they've got more problems. They've got problems on defense. The offensive line is a liability. They somehow in their play calling have moved away from their run game, which has probably been the most effective part of the game for the entire season. But that lack of leadership is really telling when the chips are not going in your direction. And now the narrative is all going to start turning to, well, what if Aaron, we don't like Aaron, he doesn't like us anymore, so we'll ship him off somewhere else. And you start to wonder, well, what point does Rodgers start playing into that? Their season is just about cooked. It's not quite. You're right, there are a couple of games out of the wild card, but most of those teams, such as the Giants, for example, Brian, have the tiebreaker in how bad they've started the season, the Packers. So they're possibly a game or 2 away on an unprecedented 5-game losing streak. of losing the season and then having a full hard reset or full hard set of conversations. So, yeah, not pleasant times for Packers fans, unfortunately. In a year over here, of course, with the first visit to European shores, they should have been celebrating and enjoying a lot more than they are actually, in fact, enjoying.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Michael, you touched on the fact that he's going to be on the show tomorrow. His name escapes me. What's the show he goes on every Tuesday?
Aaron Rodgers?
McAfee.
Why doesn't that pack?
Ben McAfee.
Not Ben McAdoo. Pat McAfee.
Do you know, like it's like a thing you install on your computer. It's like a security.
Well, he was a secure punter in his day. Okay, fair enough. McAfee. Sorry, I know exactly who he is. Sorry, the name just escaped me for a second. Like at this stage, do you not think he would turn around and say, "I got to knock this on the head, guys. I know I'm probably contractually obliged to be on the show every week, but my priority is playing football, playing for the Packers, getting this team back on track. I'm going to skip this for the next month of the season." That should be happening.
He couldn't care less. He genuinely couldn't care. It's
but that's the point I'm making. If he did care, or someone within the organisation would say, you need to have a word in his ear and say, knocked it on the head. But he doesn't, and he won't because he doesn't care.
I'm going to read out a comment to end this. Rumour has it Aaron Rodgers is set to enter I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here after losing to the Lions. Hopefully he doesn't miss his flight, just like he missed all those wide open receivers. Okay. Right, I have done the executive producer change up here. We're talking about the Vikings a quick fire because there's not I'm just gonna go in. Seattle, we're 6 games out now from Brian's prediction column. Who would have thought Seattle going to Munich on Sunday, 6-3? A bit more so, fun to watch. Have to give it to Geno, have to give it to Kenneth Walker, and have to give it to Pete Carroll. I know we've been very down on him, Colin, in recent years. He's done a great job this season, and I picked the Cardinals last night, and many other people did as well. I sound like Donald Trump here, but I'm excited to see Geno on Sunday. I'm excited because I genuinely think they'll beat the Bucs on Sunday, 100%. They're by far the better team offensively.
Welcome aboard the Seahawks hype train. Certainly Brian started it. I think I've been on board for a while, and we've now brought Michael on board. To me they always looked in control of this yesterday. Like the reaction from Geno, he threw the pick six and he immediately responded, and they just right across the field they're all playing for each other. They have 2 solid receivers. The defense, the rookies are playing really well. Again, it's the response, right? Cross made a really bad error, gave away a bad penalty on a false start, didn't let it affect him. How often have we seen with rookies that they can get into a spiral? I was just really impressed for the Cards. With I think even Jason and Mark Hogan, 2 of the more optimistic Cards fans I know, are down cliff. I think the clock is ticking there. It's been a nightmare for them, and they probably will end up cleaning house as well. But for the Seahawks, they go to Munich as I would say the favourites and the better team.
Brian, people giving Jeff Saturday a lot of guff tonight. Guff's like the new word in the show. Cliff Kingsbury's not that great either, is it?
You're talking about Mark Hogan and Jason Hayes. I think they'd be falling off a cliff at this stage. It's getting so bad with that head coach. They're still in that position in Arizona. Look, the most impressive part for me, I felt with yesterday, Colum's right. There were so many adversity moments in the game, and they still reacted. But Arizona got back into the game, shall we say? There's 3:32 left in the game. The crowd are back in it, and they drive 82 yards. A great pass and go to Noah Fant, who takes it for 45 yards, essentially closing out the game. And that's what really good teams do. They don't panic in difficult situations, and Geno hasn't panicked at all this season. He's the only quarterback with 6 games with 100+ passer rating. He's only had 8 incomplete passes yesterday. He's playing at a level way above anything that we expected. And I know we tongue-in-cheek about what I felt would happen with the Seattle this year, but that was more so because I felt Pete Carroll would get the best out of his team. As for Arizona, like Kyler Murray for me is just, You know, they gave him 250 million in the summer, and had all these stipulations about contracts, and it came out, and it was a drastic situation, and the owner must have buyer remorse of the season because we're just not seeing anything from Kyler Murray, and inevitably I think Cliff Kingsbury will be the fall guy here because Kyler Murray's going nowhere with that contract. He had 175 yards yesterday. He's not the player that we thought, unfortunately. The longest reception yesterday was 22 yards. Just not getting it done, and he still managed to stay in the game. It's a bad situation. Seattle, I agree, clear favourites on Sunday.
Mark, I'm playing Kyler on COD after this broadcast. Do you have a PS5?
No, I have an Xbox Series X, I think it is.
Of course you do.
No, that's what it is.
Of course you do.
I never,
the newest one?
PS2, PS3. PS2 was the last PS.
Look, I had a PS1. I mean, I don't think Kyler Murray had one, but you know.
No,
Brian has an Amstrad.
Commodore 64 and Spectrum ZX. Yeah,
I had a Commodore. I had a Commodore. We got one when I was like 7 or 8. But going back to it, what I was trying to say, Mark, was that somebody's got a lot of notes there. Sorry to everyone on the podcast, I am not editing that out. Mark, Kyler Murray feels like he can respawn every time something bad happens, like a bit like Call of Duty.
Yeah, no, that's a good analogy, Michael. The reality is then sometimes he respawns and he flies through the level and he gets loads of kills and it's great. And then other times he respawns and he gets shot by a sniper almost immediately. And it's a terrible level for him to be on. The reality is those cards are so hit and miss. There doesn't really seem to be any consistency. You know, we can talk about the hot seat all we like, and you point out Frank Reich and you point out people like this. And it's like, well, now with Reich's gone, who's next in the hot seat? Rule's gone and Reich's gone. I said, well, Cliff Kingsbury's seat and bum must be feeling very, very toasty right about now. Because really, when you look around the league, who else would you think is going to be worried about their job and looking over the shoulder? He's got to be candidate A at this point in time. For Seattle...
He signed a 5-year extension 6 months ago.
No,
if his arse is getting warm, his head's getting nice and fuzzy.
He'll make money out of it. Don't get me wrong, but seriously, look at the product that team is putting out on the field every time, and a lot of this is coaching. There is talent in the team. There is talent. There are talented players all around. There seems little structure, little scheme. The offensive guru aspect, where is it? And do you blame Kyler Murray for all of that, or do you blame Cliff Kingsbury? I actually put a fair amount of blame on the head coach there, although Kyler Murray's study habits still have to be improved upon, I would say. It does really feel like hit and hope, which is basically run around a lot and then throw it up in the air to Hopkins whenever he gets free now. Now he's back from suspension. It's a train wreck. But full credit to Seattle. Let's be honest about it. Brian called out Noah Fant there. Shelby Harris had a great day in the middle of the defense. They've got a few draft picks obviously coming next year, so they can continue to build on that. That's a nice little haul for them. But the performances they're putting in. Seriously, go around the NFC. There's the Eagles, very clearly, top of the class. The Vikings, 7-1. Is it a real 7-1? We'll see in the second half of the season. And then maybe you say the Cowboys. After that, Seattle has to be there. Brian, I would put the Giants there, but Seattle did hand them their ass a couple of weeks ago. So in fairness, I have to put them above the Giants. But would you have said they were a top 4 team in the NFC? It's like, of course you wouldn't. Of course you wouldn't. Yeah. Even with 9 wins. Brian, I know predicted 14 wins, but still. I'll keep upping it each week. Huge credit to Schneider. Huge credit to Pete Carroll. Column's favorite coach in the entire world. Do you realize?
Mark,
is that why you're not going to Munich at the weekend?
You have missed it. I've talked about this. You missed it as well, Michael. I've talked about this now 3 weeks in a row. I have come out. I've held my hands up. I have forgiven Pete Carroll for everything other than USC. He has done an incredible job. And right now, it looks like the Seahawks pull the Broncos' pants down, and the Broncos and the Cards find themselves with QBs where they're paying $250 million to. And yeah.
Oh no! Don't get me wrong. I don't think you should forgive him for many things he's doing. For example, they still should have run the ball in the Super Bowl. But other than that,
Jesus Smith,
he has done an amazing job. They've done an amazing job this year in relation to it, and quite rightly, they're leading their division. They look on course for things, and fair play to them. Fair play to Geno Smith. In fairness, guys, even when he had a couple of weeks ago there, he had a bad game. We were like, oh, was it all just a bit Cinderella-y? No. He's making great decisions. He's performing. So
if they win that division, and they have a home, they're not likely to have play a wild card game. Excuse me, but like nobody will want to go in and play in Seattle. It'll be really difficult. You could see them making a bit of a run in the playoffs.
I'm gonna question that, Brian. Okay. Sorry, there's only one bye. I was going to say they probably get a second bye, but there's only one bye this year in Philadelphia.
But they'll be the home team because they're likely to win the division.
Yeah,
I'm saying if they win the division,
be second seed.
I have the Niners still. I have the Niners winning the West this year now. However, I will say publicly, in terms of the teams and leagues that I've dealt with over the last 4 years, the Seattle Seahawks stand above everybody else. What they have planned for Friday and Saturday in Munich is unreal. So it's going to be a good crack. Bring on Geno. Let's jump on Sunday Night Football column. I was too busy eating a bagel this morning. I said the Titans would cover. The Titans covered. I seen the last few plays of Mahomes. Tell me about this game. What intrigued you from this game last night? I have now decided that my mental health and sleep matters more than Patrick Mahomes. And I'm damn right. I missed nothing. They won the game. If it was January, okay, but no. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it anymore. Especially when it's Malik Willis, who done all right, it seems, to hold him. So,
yeah. This talked about it in the preview. The Titans were Andy Reid's bogey team. They had beaten him 4 times. They'd beaten him twice at Arrowhead, and it looked for a time that maybe they were going to do it all over again off of Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is fantastic. That's the Vikings, Michael. We can talk about that, but I thought we were talking about Sunday Night Football first. That's Kirk Cousins. Obviously, had a great game. The Patrick Mahomes. Mina Kimes described him as defying the laws of physics, and with the hop and skip. Look, I think both of these teams felt that the refs did them dirty in certain respects. We saw Travis Kelce chucking his helmet, his helmet, chucking an opponent's helmet. But ultimately, the Chiefs found a way to get it done, which is what they do. And it will be interesting to see, depending on Josh Allen's elbow injury, obviously, and how serious that might be. The Chiefs could all of a sudden, once again, be the number 1 seeds in the AFC.
I would commend Vrabel again for a fantastic performance. Like they've lost a very tough game, but defensively, again, they played really well. Their offense only had 1 first down from the middle of the second quarter for the remainder of the game. From 5 minutes out in the second quarter, they only had 1 first down for the rest of the game. So for your defense to play essentially 2.5 quarters and still find yourself in a situation with 4 minutes to go, winning the game, just you put your hands up and say he's just a great coach, and no matter what the situation, he just finds a way to keep his team in games. But you got to give it to Mahomes. I text Colin today saying we go on about Mahomes being this and being that and being the fantastic quarterback, but when the game was on the line last night, he ran for 36 yards on that play, and then he scores the touchdown. He scores the 2-point conversion to get the game into overtime. They didn't play well last night, but when you need leaders, and sometimes you question whether he is a real leader for the team, he stepped up last night and again proved that, for me, why he's the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah, times 2. I mean, frankly, I think Tom Brady this weekend passed the record for the most fourth quarter comebacks and most game-winning drives or something like that. But realistically, when you look around the league, if you really had to rely upon someone at this moment in time, like in 2022, at this point in time, who do you trust most? Fourth quarter to make the plays you need to win the game. Mahomes is on that shortlist. If you don't want to call it shortlist of 1, there's a very limited number of people in relation to it. I mean, Josh Allen will always have a case. Definitely not this year. Aaron Rodgers, let's be honest about it. And Brady's been far too inconsistent. There's been plenty of games that he hasn't closed out, and certainly hasn't been performing the first 3 quarters before that either. So, in fairness, I mean, a scrape. Huge credit to the Titans. Colin alluded to it. They've beaten them in playoffs. They've beaten them in twice in the playoffs. Actually, knocked them out. They've beaten them in the regular season. They are undoubtedly the bogey team, and you still look at that and kind of go, well, we've had a lot of criticism of the Titans at the start of the year because of the drop in talent, because of some of the trades that were made, AJ Brown leaving and everything. they're adapting well enough. They're still managing to put out an amazing performance. Huge credit to Brady, huge credit, obviously, to all the players and all the team there. But that was a game plan with their backup quarterback that nearly scraped out the victory there. So, look, Chiefs have ground out a couple of ones they probably should have lost this season. This was one. The Raiders game, you would say, is another. Is that not the art of a good team, though?
Chargers.
You win the games you're supposed to lose. Chargers as well, yeah. I mean, the Raiders one was the one that, so to speak. But yeah, there's a few. But you win the games you kind of otherwise should have lost. And that's where Andy Reid comes in, and that's where Patrick Mahomes comes in, and things like that. So intriguing, but somewhat almost inevitable. Thanos, he was inevitable. There you go. Thanos, that's the reference we should use.
Anish, a little bit of cuteness. Colin, quick fire. Brady, Bucks, does it again. Effing awesome, I think he said at the end. I guess for the neutral, it's great to have both the Seahawks and the Bucks going to Munich with a win under their belts.
Yeah, this was like the Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior, but when they fought in WCW, it was two aging legends who are both well beyond their sell-by date. Sean McVay apparently doesn't want to be there. He wants to be in the commentary box. Tom Brady does want to be there, but is not the force. He can rouse it every now and again, but for the Rams, what an unmitigated disaster this season has been. Talked about it on Thursday. Their offensive line is a disaster. They cannot protect Matthew Stafford. The Bucks and Brady keep the season alive, but they need to get another win on Sunday, to show that they're back. But they're fortunate in a division that the Bucks go to the playoffs and Tom Brady go to the playoffs with a losing record this year.
Brian, Big Kirky got it done. Did they win the Super Bowl? Like, look, I like the Vikings, but did they win the Super Bowl last night? I mean, this whole chain thing. They're 7-1, but I think is it 6 of them? They won by one score or something.
Yeah.
Look here, fair play to them.
Yeah.
Fair play to them. Long may it continue because the Eagles need something to go up against in the NFC.
Mark alluded to, like in years gone past, and we touched on it a few weeks now, where this trust factor you'd have for the Vikings team. They were down by 10 points. It looked like the game was going to get away from them, and then they got themselves back in and put themselves in a position to win the game. I watched the press conference today, the celebration within the dressing room. Kevin O'Connell's wife had their fourth child on Friday, and he stayed there in the hospital, left there, flew with the team to be at the game, and then he was flying back immediately back to the hospital. So a bit of a whirlwind for him over 24 hours, and Hawkinson comes in, plays really well in his debut, and then Kirk Cousins goes back and beats his old team. So it's a great win for them. And they were, like, fairness, it shouldn't have been as close as well. We had officials blocking players and allowing commanders to score touchdowns. And I don't know if you saw that one. That was a hilarious play. Deep throw to Samuel, and the back judge blocks the player, essentially tackled them. Great win for the Vikings. It wasn't a pretty game, but again, they roll in, which is a huge game for them now this weekend. They play the Bills.
Mark, those Commanders jerseys are straight up fire. Complete OG. I'll give you the terminology of that after this broadcast. You're going to very quickly talk about the Raiders. Now, we've been very down on the Packers in this broadcast, and I think it's only right to be down on the Raiders. The fact that the way the Broncos have started the season, the Raiders are bottom of the West, I think is shocking with the players that they have. How long do you give McDaniels? And it's a genuine question.
No, I mean, like, at the moment, the Raiders are appalling. Like, they're unbelievable that they haven't found a loss. They haven't found the lead that they're willing not to. What's the word expression I want to use? They've got this capability of seizing defeat from the jaws of victory. That's what I want to say. Like, it's unbelievable. 17-point leads in 3 games now this season that they've thrown away. And they don't, like, that game the weekend, they've been like, they're up by 17. They're all over the Jaguars. Diggs is running, not Diggs, Devontae Adams, sorry, is running riot through the secondary. And yet still, even though they're against the Jags team, who obviously have been very off the ball the last few weeks, you kind of felt like they're going to mess this up again, aren't they? They're going to find a way of throwing it away. And we talk about winning being a habit teams want to get into. losing can be a habit too. Look at the role the Packers are on, and you're right, we gave them a loss. The Raiders just feel like they're finding ways to lose every game this season. And you're right, Michael. Like McDaniels, he will get some time, I think. Because obviously Ziegler came in with him as the GM, so they come as a package deal. And secondly, let's be honest about it, Mark Davis is one of the cheapest owners in the NFL as well, because their main asset is the Raiders football team.
Well, his haircut costs like $1,800, and he gets a flight to get his haircut. So I mean,
yeah, but he's going to have problems with that. So, and that's probably what's going to save him a little bit. He will get some more time, but unless that team figures out how to win. Like it's unbelievable. I mean, they are the first team in NFL history that in the first 8 weeks of the season, they have lost 3 games where they led by more than 17 points in the games. And again, there's so many things that are wrong there at the moment. The defense is getting no pressure on. They can't be relied upon. The offense is doing the right things at times, and then they're moving away from Josh Jacobs and moving away from a balanced offense, and they just go through barren patches. There are times Carr and called him Diggs again. Adams look unstoppable, and then there are times that they look like they've never even seen each other, let alone been best buds in college. And yes, the buck for that lies with the head coach, undoubtedly. Is he as hot as Cliff Kingsbury's seat is? No, I don't think that's the case, but it is inexcusable. And Raiders fans and everyone who supports that franchise deserve to be slightly frustrated, putting it mildly, Michael.
Slightly. I still haven't seen a Raiders championship in my lifetime. And I was 4 the last time the Cowboys won one. So just trying to get a lot of algorithm clicks here. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do like. If you're on the podcast, please do give us a rating out of 5. I don't know, comment hot dog so we know that you've listened to this. And you can't give us a rating on Spotify, apparently. You can just give us a star, and that's it. So we'd love a wee star if you can. Right, Monday Night Football. Straight up, I'm going to say Lamar Jackson column throws 4 touchdown passes and goes 320 yards passing tonight. No Mark Andrews. Roquan Smith comes in. I think the Ravens get it done against the Saints. Who have you got?
It's funny, Michael, because nobody, going by the comments, nobody thinks anybody is good in this league. The Vikings are trash, and everybody. I don't think anybody is happy with the league right now, and nobody's happy with the referees either. And the 2 teams going up tonight are interesting because the Ravens have a lot of injuries, and obviously lost their number 1 wide receiver, lost their number 1 tight end. Michael Thomas was ruled out for the season for the Saints, but realistically, did they expect him to play? How often will we see him on an NFL field again? I think is possibly the question with Michael Thomas. Look, the Saints are a really, really weird team. They make no sense whatsoever, and I don't know whether Dennis Allen is going to be in a job come the end of the year. I think there will be a huge number of head coaching changes in the NFL come the off season. But I think the problem for the Ravens is without Andrews and without Rashad Bateman, Duvernay is about the only option they have. And I think that the Saints, where they are strongest, is in terms of the defense. It's in the Superdome. I think you pointed out in the chat, the people expect it to be tight. The Ravens should win, but I'm going to pick the Saints.
Well, they do have another option, Colin, because in the last half an hour, Deshaun Jackson has been activated to play tonight. So there you go. Get your money on quickly.
I mean, I went to uni in 2009 and left uni in 2012, if we're going to start going back. I mean, The Rock came back to the WWE in 2011. Deshaun Jackson.
Well, once he catches The Rock and goes into the end zone, because whilst when you were talking earlier on, I jumped on the 6-1 that's available with Sky Bet for him to score a touchdown tonight. I think
here, has anyone got a lighter? Try and burn.
Look, the Saints, it's funny, we were talking about the division. Mark says it's an open NFC South, so it's only fitting that we have a comment from Jeff Duncan, who was on our show in London, and he put out last night on Twitter straight after the Bucs won, more concerned about the Saints. If the Saints were to win tomorrow night, we are only 1 game out of the divisional lead. Again, all these little permutations that every team within that division is working on, and he's obviously thinking, win tonight, they'll win at the weekend, and things are all rosy in New Orleans. They're not rosy. We saw them in London. For me, Andy Dalton is ultimately the biggest problem here. The fact that he's won the job now over Winston is a concern. We saw how the frailties come back to haunt him a few weeks ago with the pick sixes against the Cardinals, and we've seen what the Cardinals have done since. The Ravens had a hard-fought win last week against another team in that division, the Bucs, and I see a similar kind of pattern to tonight's game. It'll be tight enough, but I think ultimately, come the fourth quarter, Lamar Jackson will find a way to get a win, whether it's him running with the ball himself or using Cameron Drake in the backfield. But ultimately, the Ravens will win a high-scoring game.
Mark, take it home.
I'm with Colin that the Saints defense is impressive, and the Saints have a real opportunity in this game, and it's going to be tight because of the lack of weapons on the Ravens. However, I'm more with Brian with the fact that at some point, the Ravens and their run all day fat boy run technique will take precedence and will be able to unlock that Saints defense. That's what it boils down to in this regard. I don't rate the Saints offense, obviously. I don't really rate the Ravens defense, to be fair. I think they've been exposed at times this season still. But overall, you're comparing these two teams. I like the way Colin described it. The Ravens should win, but he's taking the Saints. I kind of understand the logic, but I'm going to take the Ravens. I'm going to take Lamar. I'm going to take that run game and that powerful offensive line to do just enough to take the game in the Superdome tonight.
37-10 for me. That is my guess tonight on the score to the Ravens. Big shout out to everyone who's commented on YouTube, because the podcast is ended now, lads. It's over. The podcast is over. If you do want a super chat, that can get us a pint in Munich. Somebody asked, is there a live show in Munich? I don't know. We'll see. Me and Brian are in Munich at the weekend. Colin doesn't want to see Pete Carroll, and Mark, folks, for €2 a month, you can sort out Mark's Wi-Fi at the bottom there. Just super chat us, and we'll try and get him on a 4G.
Mark doesn't want to see Tom Brady live in another jersey, Michael. That's the reality.
Third time for me seeing Brady play this Sunday. I am definitely feeling grateful. I did not think whenever I seen him the last time when he destroyed the team that I watched that I'd see him again, so it's going to be pretty cool. Trying to get some questions on here. People aren't happy with a Miami title column. Do you see any questions?
No, there's great chats, in fairness, and some good discussion, and I think good advice around. I think Tom James is headed over to Chicago for a first trip and was wondering where to sit. So definitely, there have been some kind of good pieces. Obviously, Cassidy have some deals, but Jason Hayes has written a piece on the website about his own trip stateside and offered some of his thoughts. It is worthwhile. If anyone is watching, listening, and thinking of doing a trip, I could not encourage you more to do it. Take the opportunity and just go and do it. The party when Philadelphia click their playoff spot should be fantastic. So make your way to that city on the East Coast and enjoy.
Absolutely. And question there saying, do you need a cameraman? Yes, we do. Hit us up. Back on Wednesday night. See you then. Cheers, lads.
Come on, the Astros.
Wow.